All right, Sean. So more reports. This one coming from Ian Rapaport. He was on the NFL Insiders, was discussing the offensive coordinator targets for Mike Vrabel, and those being Thomas Brown, who was interim head coach for the Bears once Matt Eberflus was fired, and Shane Waldron, so he took over play calling duties. Marcus Brady, and then of course there's Josh McDaniels. So all of these being significant guys. Josh McDaniels seems to be the no-brainer. What do you think of the top three being on this list, Sean?
Yeah, I would say so. And we talked a little bit about this, and I wrote this last week too. When it comes to McDaniels, I think, the biggest advantage when it comes to him is just the fact that, and it sounds silly, but nobody else wants him. He's not going to go anywhere and get a head coaching job anywhere else, regardless of if he has a really good 2 or 3 years with Drake May and under Mike Vrabel. He's just, it's not that part of his career is gone, after obviously, failing as a head coach twice in 2 different situations. So I just think, like, when it really comes to McDaniel specifically, I think that's the biggest advantage he has, because you can grow, it could be Vrabel, McDaniels, May for, I don't know, are we talking 8 years at this point? 10 years down the line. And I just think, maybe going in with that mind, like, a 10-year game plan, maybe that's getting a little ahead of yourself. But I also do think, like, there's something to that. And, if you go, a guy like Thomas Brown, I mean, with the amount of experiences he's had, obviously not all of them great, but with the amount of experiences he's had, if he comes in and he, does really well with Drake May and under Vrabel, there's a very good chance that he's looking for a head coaching job, the year after, or whatever, in 26 or the year after that. So I just think, like, then you get into the aspect of, then we're resetting again, and, then we're looking for the next guy. So, and I do think, again, like, I think a lot of the names that I would like to see them go after are those kind of guys, the Nick Haleys. And, I saw there was a report about Josh McCown and how he wasn't going to accept anything less than, he wasn't going to go somewhere for an offensive coordinator job, is essentially what the report was. But I still think there's something to, going after those guys, because I think at some point you're trying to get them from the ground floor. But there's definitely a drawback to it as well. And that's something that they present, but that's, not something that McDaniels presents in my mind.
Yeah. When they go through those, and Marcus Brady, he spent this past season as a Chargers passing game coordinator, but his prior stops, Colts assistant quarterbacks coach, QB coach, offensive coordinator with the Colts, basically a branch off the Frank Reich coaching tree. That's what Marcus Brady provides. And that's significant, where his scheme is a blend of West Coast offense with a little bit of air raid RPO. Drake May's skill set, that's fantastic. And you bring in a Marcus Brady, he's a passing game coordinator with the Chargers. That's what sticks out to me of learned from Jim Harbaugh, was around Justin Herbert, same skill set as Drake May. Drake May is more athletic, in my opinion, than Justin Herbert, but same build, same size, same arm strength, and honestly on the same trajectory as their career. Here is what Ian Rapaport had to say when discussing the offensive coordinator targets on the Insiders.
Let's talk about some news. Let's talk about the Patriots' search for an offensive coordinator. A new coach, Mike Vrabel, has started that this week. My understanding is he spent Tuesday interviewing Thomas Brown, the former Bears interim head coach, also interim offensive coordinator. Dealt with a lot in Chicago. Very impressive despite tough results on the field. Also sounds like they want to talk to Marcus Brady, who is now a Chargers assistant. That said, guys, as you know, most people believe that Josh McDaniels, former Patriots OC, actually a couple times, still lives in New England, currently not working, would be a prime candidate for that job, considered to be the favorite. I would expect Mike Vrabel to talk to him as they go about the process of trying to find a new offensive coordinator.
Now, Josh McDaniels considered to be the favorite. Look, this is a guy that if you combine it's his time between offensive coordinator and being a head coach, because he was a head coach with the Broncos and the Raiders, also an offensive coordinator with the St. Louis Rams when they were in St. Louis at the time. That's 18 seasons of being an NFL play caller under his belt. A guy that spent time on the defensive side of the ball with Mike Vrabel. A guy that runs a very complicated system that puts a lot on the quarterback, making a lot of calls at the line of scrimmage. With Drake May, his processing, his reads, his IQ, what he was doing after the snap was so far ahead of schedule what I predicted for him. I'm not worried about the IQ or and any of that when it comes to Drake May. He has the talent. He also has the brains for the quarterback. Look, for him to be the favorite, it shocks nobody. And to me, it just boils down to, is this who Mike Vrabel wants, though? Like, he has to be 100% on board with his coaching staff. I don't want this to be a Kraft hire. I don't want it to be Robert Kraft or Jonathan Kraft pushing it on him. Someone he's comfortable with. Someone he sees will work well with Drake May. And what you get with Josh McDaniels, and I do believe it. Look, there are a lot of dumb owners out there that Josh McDaniels will have success with Drake May, and they're going to think, do I hire him as my head coach? There's a lot of dumb owners, but hopefully they're not dumb enough to forget that what he did with the Broncos, before like his office was fully decorated, pissed off Jay Cutler, ended up trading him away because he wanted to get Matt Castle in the door, and drafted Tim Tebow. What he did with the Colts, leaving them literally at the altar. Hey, yeah, I'll take that job. And then last minute going, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to stay. And then when he was with the Raiders, lasting a season and a half, and again, just not being a head coach. What makes Josh McDaniels beneficial for Mike Vrabel is that I don't think he's going to go anywhere for 5 years. Like, he is with Drake May. Maybe in 5 years, that stink leaves him, and then he becomes a head coach again. But if you go like a Clint Kubiak is a guy I think of, West Coast offense, loves a run game, has been in different stops, learned from Kyle Shanahan. This past year, leading the Saints, was a play caller for multiple seasons, doing all this. But if he does well with Drake May, he's a year, 2, max 3, and he's gone. Josh McDaniels would be here long term. And there is a familiarity. He knows what he's walking into, and he knows how people work with him. And a guy that's been doing it for a long time knows how to fill out a staff. And that's someone I could not imagine this past season's wide receiver room like playing for Josh McDaniels and him tolerating what was happening in that room alone.
Yeah, same thing goes for Vrabel too, right? I mean, there's no way that those things wouldn't have been happening with him as the head coach. So I guess question for you. So you would be happy with Josh McDaniels as the next offensive coordinator?
Look, 2020, he changed the whole offense to cater to Cam Newton, and they won 7 games. I think they went 7-9. 2021, he had Mac Jones as a Pro Bowl alternate and then top 6 in scoring. And I'm not going to hold against him too much what he was doing in Vegas because it was Jimmy Garoppolo, but he schemes up gimme plays. Like he had Jimmy Garoppolo doing an under center RPO and getting Devontae Adams easy yards. When he was with the Patriots leading the offense, 26 points per game, 5th in points per play, 0.43. Buffalo was first with 0.45. 7th in red zone scoring percentage. And they were having 2.8 offensive touchdowns a game. That would have been 9th in the NFL this season, what they were doing in 2021. With Mac Jones, Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne in year 1. Kendrick Bourne's a good piece. Build around him. But they had nobodies. And it's just like the skill set. And working in guys like Jonnu Smith, they couldn't figure out. I would be for Josh McDaniels because that's a guy that has adapted his playbook time and time again. It's more than the OC, who are the position coaches. And with Josh McDaniels, what does the timeline look like? Do the Patriots go to him like, Josh, look, you want to get some more Lombardi trophies? You got 6. You want to get more rings? You could get 3 with this kid. Just stay. Don't leave. Don't be an idiot. Some people are meant to be head coaches. Others are meant to be coordinators. You are a coordinator. Like, that has to be the serious conversation. And it has to be something, you know what, fine. One day you want to do it. Don't leave for 5 years. Like, we want to build something here. Mike's a head coach. Don't leave for 5 years. And then let me see who is under Josh McDaniels. For the guys out there that who can he groom to be the next offensive coordinator, next play caller for the Patriots if he does leave.
Yeah. I kind of mentioned this off the top too. Like, I think that is the biggest benefit of Josh McDaniels. I would say like the one, thing that makes me a little hesitant is just, does it feel like you're kind of going, maybe not backwards, but you're going into the past in order to, revive this thing, as opposed to going with a future guy, whether it's, I'll bring up the name Caley again, or, a lot of the guys that, I think, those young and up and coming offensive coordinators, you kind of are going into the past when it comes to Josh McDaniels. But, I certainly, with that said, I can imagine him, kind of, fast forwarding his timeline, when it comes to, taking some of those aspects of, the new and offensive schemes. I could see him taking some of that and implementing it. I do think, he's smart enough and knowledgeable enough and everything like that when it comes to it. So I think I would be, and I might have said this last week as well. Like I would be content. I would be fine with it when it comes to McDaniels, but there is like some hesitance when it comes to it. But again, the biggest advantage is the fact that he would not be going anywhere. You say 5 years. I truly don't think he'll get another offensive job. Another head coaching job. The fact that both of his head coaching jobs lasted less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And the Colts thing on top of that, I just think that, head coaching, there's no head coaching vacancy that's going to go to Josh McDaniels. Mm-hmm. So, if you're looking for the long term, that's certainly one part that makes it attractive.
I never underestimate how dumb some owners are out there, though. I really don't. Like, there's going to be someone, Drake May, putting up big numbers. Drake May, if he continues on the trajectory to be what I think he can be, which will be a top 5 quarterback in the league, they're going to be like, who's calling plays? Who developed him? Oh, is that Alex Van Pelt guy for a year? Oh, yeah. Josh McDaniels been with them the last 5. There are dumb owners out there. If it's not McDaniels in your eyes then, and it could break away from Thomas Brown, Marcus Brady, I mentioned Clint Kubiak, who in your eyes would make sense as an offensive coordinator then, Sean?
I don't want to keep saying the name, but I like Caley, and I just like the fact that.
But he's never called plays before, so why?
Because I think you're kind of getting one of those guys at the ground floor, before he, you're letting him, reach his potential with you, and eventually, maybe that means that 5 years or 6 years down the line, he does go somewhere else to get a head coaching role. But I just think the fact that. He was sought after, not only here. I mean, the Patriots offered him a contract last year under Gerard Mayo. They wanted him to be here. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's like, what, I'm going to get another year under McVay. I think there's a lot to that. And I think he was pretty well respected when he was here. And then he gets 2 years under McVay. So I think it has a lot to do with that. And, so I would go Caley. I know the younger LaFleur, Mike LaFleur, I know, he's the offensive coordinator there. He's been the offensive coordinator under McVay. Again, not calling plays, but he's been the offensive coordinator there. And there's kind of like some weird, tentacle sort of connections. I was looking it up, and Vrabel hired Matt LaFleur, when he got to Tennessee. Obviously Matt LaFleur only lasts a year, goes to Green Bay, now the head coach there. But, could it be the same sort of thing with the younger brother now coming in as Vrabel's next head coach? As Vrabel's next offensive coordinator. I think it's interesting. And both of those guys, again, not play calling experience, but both experience under McVay. And the fact that you have a veteran coach atop them, I think there's a lot to that.
Yeah. I need play calling experience, and I think that's like my checked box number 1. Have you called plays? You've been around Sean McVay, great. Mm-hmm. Have you called plays? Now look at Liam Cohen, worked out tremendously. So it's like I'm not gonna completely push that away, but also Liam Cohen, like in the college ranks, called plays. Wasn't just complete with the Rams. I need more than a former tight ends coach. I see what you're saying, and it's also with Nick Caley sought after, offered a contract by the Patriots. It doesn't mean too much to me because of how bad they were at putting together that coaching staff, where they had no experience. Yeah. All they had was Elliot Wolf calling shots pretty much because he had to go through his Rolodex of who he knew. And he goes, Nick Caley, spent time with McVay, let's get him in here. And I feel like he kind of looked around and he said no because he was like, I see what's happening here. I'm good. I'd rather be around Sean McVay and be with there as long as I can. Then I know I'll be looking for a job in a year. So, while I'm with the Rams, let me just stick here for a little bit. As a passing game coordinator, maybe you elevate him. Maybe it is Josh McDaniels, associate head coach and offensive coordinator. Like, you could play with the titles, and Nick Caley's right under McDaniels. Yeah, sure. Fine with that. Tight ends coach / passing game coordinator. Fine. I'm cool with that. I need a play caller. And that's why I think of Clint Kubiak. He's with the Saints. He's with the 49ers, called plays with the Broncos once Nathaniel Hackett got fired. Yeah, not the best endorsement, but also he's seen literally how not to head coach, how not to manage games. That's important. And you had that Saints offense that had Alvin Kamara in this day and age set a season high in rushing yards, had him be one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL early on in the season. Yes, they hit their wall, but how he's able to get the most out of very little with Derek Carr, Jake Hayner, Spencer Rattler. Give him Drake May. That's it. But I think all roads lead back to Josh McDaniels. What about defensive coordinators? So Mike Reese put out an article on ESPN, and he pointed out who the coordinators are. The ones he's looking at, Terrell Williams, I've highlighted him before. 6 years of Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, defensive line coach with him, now the D-line coach, run game coordinator. with the Lions. Bobby King, Philadelphia Eagles inside linebackers coach, was with Vrabel in Tennessee. Ryan Crow, the Dolphins outside linebackers coach, was with Vrabel in Tennessee. Then Chris Harris, Titans passing game coordinator, cornerbacks coach right now, which is a carryover from Vrabel's coaching staff. Terrell Williams makes sense. I mean, his final season there, he was an assistant head coach for Mike Vrabel. There was a story that came out when Vrabel was let go. Like, he said to Terrell Williams, the bond is really, like, hugged him, said he was looking forward to seeing his son play hockey more. Massachusetts, hockey state, Terrell. You get really good. You're up in Detroit right now. You get really good hockey experience for your kid up here in Mass. I just think the bond is there. The relationship is there. And what Terrell Williams helped Mike Vrabel with the most wasn't the X's and O's. It was building relationships. Mike Vrabel has highlighted that. I think it's Terrell Williams. I think it would be a good hire. This list I'm at peace with. And again, Sean, the same way I look, you got a guy that's an inside linebackers coach. Look what he did with Zach Bond in Philly and Bobby King. That's a guy that was drafted as an on-ball linebacker, edge defender with with New Orleans. New Orleans was never more than a special teams player. Zach Bond was a Pro Bowler this past season. Ryan Crow with the Dolphins outside linebackers, they always excelled and played well, and he learned from Anthony Weaver. You get those guys in, again, passing game coordinator, maybe elevate them, linebackers coach overall, run game coordinator. I wouldn't be surprised to see a reunion of some sorts for a lot of these assistants coming to New England to play under Vrabel.
Yeah, I just want to second everything that you're saying about Terrell Williams. I think, and not just the fact that, Reese came out today and said that it was, he was leaning that way, or like that was his favorite, whatever the wording was on that. Mm-hmm. But I think it makes a lot of sense as well, because of when you look at the Patriots, like they need, they have, Keon White, and they have, I'm blanking on his name right now. Christian Barmore, sorry. They have those two guys, these young and up and coming guys. And, Christian Gonzalez is obviously probably the top defender when you're talking about that, but just to have a, defensive line coach come in, or, at least someone with as much experience, on the defensive line. He's been working with that unit for, 13 years at this point. Mm-hmm. I also went back and just today when I saw that, Jeffrey Simmons. So he worked with Jeffrey Simmons on the Titans. Obviously, Jeffrey Simmons, as good as he is, and Jeffrey Simmons had a lot of good to say about him. Really lauded him for his talked about his passion for the game. There was his respect and how he's able to keep it real was a quote. He's able to keep it real with the players he has. And then just, the fact that he's, with that, it's holding them accountable and, being honest with them. Both things that Mike Vrabel, said a few times this week during his introductory press conference, forming those relationships and how important it was to be honest with those players. So I think when when you talk about a lot of that stuff, I do think that, Terrell Williams makes a lot of sense, both because how he could help, those guys, Christian Barmore and, Keon White, among others, but, those two specifically, as well as, his ability to kind of create relationships with the guys he has.
In an Athletic article covering Mike Vrabel, he told defensive line coach Terrell Williams he was hoping to see Williams' son graduate from high school, attend more of his hockey games. He thanked him for He thanked him for teaching Vrabel how to better connect with his players. That's what Vrabel's all about. And if Terrell Williams is the guy that helped teach him that, that's what you want. That's someone you want in the building. And you point out how he developed a Jeffrey Simmons. How this defensive line looked under Aaron Glenn as a DC, but when Aiden Hutchinson, your best player, goes down, you sign Zadarius Smith. Well, you trade for him at the deadline. He's an instant impact player. You lose an Aleem McNeil. How a DJ Reader steps up. How he developed a Jeffrey Simmons. Going to the other candidates, how a Ryan Crow, who's now with the Dolphins, how he helped develop Nico Autry, who is a guy that was drafted by Tennessee, had some great seasons under Crow and Williams. How he helped develop an Harold Landry. I'm talking about Crow here too. What Tennessee did so well is drafting players, develop them to be high performers on both sides of the ball. It all circles back around to a Terrell Williams. And look, to give the names, let's say if it's not one of these four, right? And the list should go beyond that, because I am big on, if they're doing these searches, bring people in. Christian Parker in that Eagles secondary. He's the Eagles secondary coach. He was with the Packers, with the Broncos, learning from Vance Joseph. Now the Broncos, one of the best defenses in the league. And Ejiro Evero, who is always floated as a head coaching candidate. And he was with Vic Fangio this past season. Jim Leonard, sticking with the Broncos now. defensive backs coach, passing game coordinator. That's a guy who's been a head coach in the college ranks, knows the AFC East, been a player. Bring him in. And maybe you give him an elevated position under Terrell Williams. Robert Saleh, that has to be the most sought-after name. I think he just ends up in San Fran. He's boys with Kyle Shanahan. But 3.5 years of head coaching experience, as bad as it was with the Jets, that matters. And how good that defense was, despite everything he was dealing with from Brick and Jack Johnson, that matters. And then there's Lou Anarumo. Coaching since 89, NFL since 2012, 5 years as defensive coordinator with the Bengals. And that's a guy that doesn't seem like he would leave in that role. Defensive side, I'm not too worried about because also you have Mike Vrabel, who is a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
But, and when you had Logan Ryan on last week, for a defensive-minded coach like Mike Vrabel, he salvaged Ryan Tannehill's career. He helped Derrick Henry get to be what he is. He saw A.J. Brown, wanted him, and helped develop him into being what he is. Jonnu Smith wanted him, drafted him, and he's the reason Jonnu Smith got that big contract from the Patriots. Didn't work out. Now look at Jonnu Smith with the Dolphins in the right system. He knows what he's doing on the offensive side.